Great. Okay, once again, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from in Africa or whatever part of the world you are. My name is Valarie Waswa. I'm going to share more about myself, don't worry, but I'm the convener of this capacity building workshop, a 3-day capacity building workshop titled Youth Capacity Building Youth Capacity Building Workshop on Data Governance under the African Union Data Policy Framework. Thank you so much and congratulations to all of you for getting selected, because we had a very big number of applications, around 167, and we narrowed down to 69. So congratulations for making it here. It means either you're a youth, you're passionate, or you are interested about digital rights. Kindly let me know if you're able to engage, if you're able to chat, put it in the, if you're able to interact via chat. Initially, I had limited that. All right. Also, I'm just gonna share the program lineup on the chat, but maybe let me just, let me share this program lineup so we can quickly go through it, but I'm sharing it on the chat as well. As you can see, we are going to interact a lot with Google Drive, Google Docs, Google Sheet, etc. So please also just familiarize yourself. I think Google has AI, because even before I shared it, it suggested that I should share the program lineup with you guys. That's how technology is fast advancing. All right, so I don't want to waste much of your time because we only have 2 hours. As I said, my name is Valarie Waswa. Allow me to quickly go through the program lineup, and then we're going to go to the welcoming remarks. Okay, so we're going to have an opening remarks from Africa Center for Digital Transformation, and then I'm going to say a bit about myself and why we are here, and then we're going to talk about the introduction to data governance, an overview of the African Union Data Policy Framework, youth and data governance, that is the context and challenges for youth in data governance, and not just that, but also opportunities, right? Because we are always talking about challenges, but we want us to be problem solvers. And then we're going to have breakout rooms, 4 breakout rooms, where we're going to be discussing about what are the biggest data governance issues affecting youth in your country. Then we are going to have every day around 30 to 40 minutes where we get to draft a youth call to action. A youth call to action. What do you want to see? What do you want to see change, and all of that? So yeah, that's that. And then informal networking. So that's all for day 1. So let me go back to this tab. As you can see, so I'm gonna be navigating around. All right, yes. So welcome to day 1 of this capacity building workshop on 19th of May, 2025, where we are going to be talking more about all matters data governance and the African Union Data Policy Framework. So even before I go through anything, can I just see in the room if there's anyone who knows what the African Union is? I'm sure you've all heard about it. Let's see some reactions, maybe some emoji reactions on the chat as well. Yeah, I think unless you live under a rock, everyone knows what the AU is. Great. So let's see how many people know about the African Union Data Policy Framework. Honestly speaking, like before this call for applications and everything, you knew what the AU DPF is. No one is going to vindicate you. So if you know about the AUDPF, are there any hands in the room? Any reactions? The reactions reduced. That's okay. So thank you so much, guys. At this juncture, I want to give it to representation from the Africa Center for Digital Transformation, if they can give their opening remarks. I don't know if there's someone from ACDT here. As you all know, I'm a Tech Forward Policy Fellow at the Africa Center for Digital Transformation, which is an international organization that is meant to transform digital policies and tech policies from a pan-African perspective through research, advocacy, and capacity building, such as the fellowship. So this is a capstone project of my fellowship where I said, you know what, I gained so much knowledge through the fellowship, why not give it back to my fellow African youth? So yes, I can see that the Africa Center is here. I don't know if you're able to speak. I think I've allowed you to speak as a contributor. So over to you, ACDT.
Yes.
No,
hello, everyone. Can you see me and can you hear me?
We can hear you, but we cannot see you.
I think it's going to take a while because
no
my
problem.
video is on. Yes. Okay, now you can see me. Yeah. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm really excited to be here. I have been following quite closely on the page with the engagement. It's very exciting. And Valerie, thank you very much for putting this up. I can almost feel the Kenyan vibe with the music that you were playing. Yeah, I don't know if it's like a typical Kenyan music or something. Okay, I think, can you hear me? I think my network.
Actually, Ugandan, I think. Isaac
It's Ugandan.
Uganda.
Okay, I really like how we are very versatile as a continent. And for me, it's always interesting to hear music from somewhere. Okay, so let me just go straight to the point. I have the privilege of representing the Africa Center for Digital Transformation on this August occasion. My name is Evelyn Kwartin. I'm with the center, and I am one of the founding board members, but also director of programs. So allow me to read like a short speech that I prepared for you. I hope it won't be boring. So here it goes. Yeah, it's truly inspiring to be here, you know, amongst many passionate, curious and committed young minds, as I even also saw it on the page. We are gathered for such an important purpose, and that is to understand the AU data policy framework and its role in shaping the future of digital rights across Africa. Let me begin by mentioning two initiatives that is pushing this conversation forward. So first is the Africa Center for Digital Transformation. I think Valarie did a great job by, you know, giving a quick summary. It is an African-led organization, and the idea is to advance policy advocacy, you know, capacity building, and media engagement, among others. So what Valarie is doing really aligns with, in terms of the center and also the Tech Forward Policy Fellowship. It's a 3-month fellowship, so we are in our final month, and this is Valerie's capstone project, as you mentioned. And there are 4 tracks. So we have the AI, cybersecurity, twin transition, and also the digital public infrastructure. All of these things are very important themes on the African continent, and the 20 fellows from across Africa have been exploring it ever since March. Okay. The AU data policy framework is not just a policy document, it's a bold vision for the continent, and it seeks to ensure that data is protected, responsibly used, and governed in a way that empowers rather than exploits. And who better to carry that vision forward than the youth? Because as we may know, Africa is the only continent with the largest youth in the whole world. So it's important that we involve the youth. But why are we having this conversation? Because you are the generation that is most connected, most creative, and most aware of how digital systems impact real world. From raising awareness about data privacy to building civic tech solutions to demanding accountability from both government and platforms, you have the tools, the voice, and the urgency to make things happen. But potential alone isn't enough. This workshop is about building the skills and understanding that would allow you to engage with frameworks like the AU data policy, not just as observers, but also as active contributors. So I challenge you today, not only to learn, but to lead, not only to discuss the policy, but to imagine how we can implement it in our communities, in our schools, tech spaces, and also government. Together, through initiatives like this and the platform like this workshop, we're able to create a movement, one that says Africa's digital future will be just, inclusive, and led by its youth. Let's make that future real. Thank you very much, everyone.
Wow, 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 wow. A round of applause for Eve from ACDT. Thank you so much. That is very inspiring, and what a way to kickstart this, groundbreaking training. And actually, let me just say that Eve has really been very instrumental in supporting us as young people throughout the fellowship. And even as we're about to come to an end, it is really emotional that we may not be engaging as much on a daily, but guess what? Communication lines will still remain open. And I actually do encourage most of you that in the next round of the Tech Forward Fellowship at ACDT, I believe that such capacity building workshops will make you to be equipped enough to be able to apply and get selected into the 3-month fellowship. So from 3-day workshop to 3-month fellowship. So thank you so much, Eve. Without further ado, I'm just gonna go to the next slide because time is not on our side and I want us to take exactly 2 hours. Apologies if you hear a cracked voice. I have a very terrible cold that I'm thinking what strain of cold this is. So I think Eve has already mentioned what the ACDT is, committed to harnessing the opportunities by digital transformation for the continent of Africa. So for Africans, by Africans, with Africans, ensuring that the digital innovation ecosystem impacts and transforms the socio-economic development of Africans. And the fellowship specifically is designed for young professionals who are passionate about digital policy, innovation, sustainable development across the African continent. And just as Eve said, we cannot have conversations around technology without young people, because we all know that Africa is the most youthful continent in this universe. And therefore, anything that touches on any policy, whether it's agriculture or whatever, but then specifically technology, are the biggest consumers of technology. We are the present and we are the future. Therefore, decisions that are made around technology and digital policies should be shaped with and for the youth. And that is why we are coming up with this training, so that you can better shape data governance policies, not just in your country or region, but at a continental level. About myself, I am a Tech Forward Policy Fellow. I am a lawyer by profession, a digital rights and tech policy lawyer, a certified data protection officer, and very, very passionate about youth and empowering youth and working with youth, because I am a youth as well. All right, so I think my slides moved. Give me just 1 minute to fix that. All right. Or I guess we can just, it's about what I say, not what you see. Or maybe let me stop sharing for 1 minute and just fix that. Okay. All right. Okay, perfect. So let me share my screen again. And please, if you want to engage, just feel free to raise your hand. I limited that just to ensure we don't have, any background noise. All right. So I'm gonna present now. And, we're just gonna dive right into it. But even before we go through it, there are some certain resources that I had shared with you guys yesterday. And maybe let me just start with an icebreaker. Okay, this is really a hard stop. Let's go back here. I feel like this is a very hard beginning. All right. So there are some resources I had shared on email and on WhatsApp. One was 2 documents, that is the African Union Data Policy Framework. And then one was a video on data governance in Africa. And the other one was a glossary with different terms around data protection. But I want to ask you if there's anyone who is bold enough to raise their hand and share what is data governance in your local language. Is there anyone who would like to share that with us? Maybe you can just raise your hand and I'll give you the mic. What is data governance? If you were to talk about data governance in your local language, how would you call the term data governance? Are there any hands? I'm not seeing any hands. Hello, can you guys hear me? Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. I thought maybe my network is problematic. So maybe we can start with Kelvin. Kelvin, please accept the request to speak. Kevin, I cannot hear you. Are you able to turn on your microphone? Okay, let's see. We have Evans. Evans, if you're able to speak, please do so. And also I can see Atta. So any of you, I can see.
Hello.
Hello, all right. Yes, please. Who's
Can you hear me?
speaking?
Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can.
This is Evans.
Yes, go for it, Evans.
I'm from Kenya. I wanted to say it in Kiswahili.
Mhm.
Data governance in Kiswahili, I would say it's usimamizi. Usimamizi wa data wa Kiswahili. That's a try. Thank you.
Interesting. Okay. Let's see. Usimamizi wa data. Right. Thank you, Evans. I saw a hand from Atta Senior. Atta, do you want to go for it? You have the mic.
Okay, thank you very much, Valarie, for this opportunity. So I'm speaking from Accra, Ghana, and then in my local dialect, data policy or data governance, you will say, so what
Sorry, could you say that again, or maybe also type it in the chat? Wow, what language is that, Atta?
Yeah, so that is P.
P. Is that Twi?
P. Yes, P.
That's from Ghana, right?
Yes, please.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing. And let's go to Rosens. Rosens, 1 minute, let's see. Rosens, do you want to share as well? Rosens, if you're able to put on your microphone, I've given you the mic.
All right. Thank you, Valerie, for the opportunity. So, my name is Rosens and I'm from Zimbabwe. So, we speak Shona. And in Shona, data governance, kuchengetedzwa kwemafambiro anoita nyaya mumasaisai.
Wow, it went from a word to a sentence. Thank you so much for sharing, Rosens from Zimbabwe, Atta from Ghana, and Kevin from Kenya. As you can see, it's very important for us to also start just thinking at the top of our minds how to localize these conversations back in our communities so that language is not something that excludes our people from these conversations. And please feel free to share in the chat. Anytime you want to speak, please just raise your hand and I can give you the mic. I restricted the microphone just to ensure we don't have any background noise. All right, So next, let's have another icebreaker. There's some resources that I got to share yesterday. Let's see who were good students. So is there anyone who would like to share anything they learned, even if it's just in one sentence, from the resources that I shared yesterday? Any raised hands? There are no wrong answers. Remember, we are all learning. Thank you. I can see a number of hands. Let's see someone who's not spoken. Ian Makambu. Ian Makambu, you have the microphone. Ian, are you able to unmute? Okay, yes, go for it.
Yes. So what I was able to learn was from the video by Dr. Deeli, and what he was saying about the need for Africans to come together and speak on one voice towards the Africa Data Policy framework to be able to negotiate with companies, particularly the big tech companies who control most of the data governance frameworks.
Thank you so much for sharing. Maybe we can have one last person before we start. One last person. So what happens is that, okay, I can see there's a hand by Salim. There are more hands, sorry. Salim, go for it. So when you're given the mic, please accept to be a contributor. Then we have Adiva Digital. So maybe we can start with Salim. Salim, are you there? All right, Adiva Digital. Okay, Rosens, do you want to go for it? Salim, you need to accept to be a contributor. Okay, great. So maybe let's just move on in the interest of time and talk about data governance, right? Data governance is it's a very buzzword right now. It's almost like, you know, AI. Everyone is talking about AI, but the question is, what exactly do we mean when we talk about data governance, right? So data governance is a framework that outlines how data is collected, managed, shared, and how data is collected, managed, shared, and protected. So there are about 4 things here. So again, just keep in mind throughout when you're talking about matters data, we are talking about personal data. So let me not assume that everyone knows what personal data is, but personal data is data that identifies you as a natural person. Let me use the legal term, as a natural person, and not as a legal person. So what does it mean to be a natural person? That means a human being, So not an animal, not a tree, not a robot, but a personal, a natural person. So personal data, let me just give examples. That could be your national ID number, your passport number, your fingerprints, you know, that is biometric data. So when you're talking about biometric data, we are talking about things such as your fingerprints, your iris, you know, and then we also have things like your location, that's also personal data, your email address, and stuff like that. So anything that personally identifies you, that is your personal data. Also, your health condition is your personal data. So if you find that when you're talking about personal data, we have both sensitive personal data and then just general personal data. So it depends with how the risk, right? It depends with the risk. So if the data you have exposes you to bigger risk, then there's a bigger threshold that is required to protect that data. So sensitive data could be something like your bank account details, right? That's very sensitive because when someone has your bank account details, you'd lose millions in Kenyan shillings or in US dollars or in euros or, you know, or in Botswana Pula, or it could be your health information, right? So let's say you have a very critical health condition that is very sensitive to you, in the sense that it will lead to very big bias as to how people interact with you. So it could be your HIV/AIDS status. It could be you have a critical illness and stuff like that. So that's called health-related data. So I'm not going to go much into personal data protection, because data governance is bigger than data protection. So now that we know what personal data is, throughout this 3-day training, we are basically just gonna talk about how this personal data is collected, right? So is it being collected when you're getting into a hotel room or a building and the security asks you to fill in your national ID number, your email, etc.? So, or is it being collected through Google Forms, like how you applied for this workshop? Or is it being collected, you know, in the market when there's a promotion and people are being given t-shirts and promo, like merchandise, like t-shirts and etc.? So that is, how is this data being collected? It's very important. And then how is it managed, right? So think about it like, let me use water. So growing up, water used to be a big issue, right? And so we used to have these tunnels that were put next to the roof, to the tin roof, what we call mabati in Kenya. And so when it rains, that pipe collects water into a container. So think about it from that analogy. So your data is being collected, and then how is it being managed? And you know, usually that is where the issues start coming in, right? So for example, there's a promotion that is happening in the market or in town, and they're saying that please come and play a game, and then you may earn cash prizes, or you may earn a phone and stuff like that. But the truth of the matter is, you register your details there, and then a few days later, you're getting you know, text messages from a political party asking you to vote for them to be your member of parliament, right? So the data, the purpose for which this data is being managed has shifted from you getting a t-shirt or cash prizes to now for political reasons, right? Or when you apply for something in a hotel, or maybe you're logging into Wi-Fi, to public Wi-Fi, and before you know it, your email is full of spam emails of just marketing information from this hotel, or even something very different from what you signed up for. So how is this data being managed? How is it being shared? Right, so there are terms you start hearing, like third parties, right? So let's say if you applied to get into this workshop, and then you suddenly get your WhatsApp number added into a WhatsApp group of someone who wants to have a birthday party or a wedding party, and they need you to contribute money. Then the data has transcended just the person whom you shared your data with, and it's now being used by third parties. And finally, and most importantly, is how is this data being protected? What are the mechanisms? What are the systems? What are the structures that are being put in place to govern and protect this data? I also want to give a disclaimer that a lot of what you're going to be talking about in the next 3 days is going to center a lot around in the tech space, right? Because a lot of data is collected, is managed, is used, is shared in the tech space. So I want you to start thinking about data from a technological perspective. Think about how, you know, you accept cookies on a website, and you are just scrolling looking for shoes, and then you go on TikTok, and the next four videos you see is someone online selling shoes. So stuff like that, right? Or, you know, online banking and stuff like that, because with technology, your data transcends faster, and there's even automation of your data and all that. So how is this data being protected? What are the cybersecurity mechanisms that are being put in place? Think about how much sensitive data you put onto your Google Drive, right? You have your degree certificate, you scan it, you put it online. You have your CT scans, you went to hospital and you did a CT scan, you scan that, you put it on your Google Drive or whatever drive that you use. So what are the mechanisms that Google has to ensure that this data does not mistakenly leak into someone else's Google Drive, etc.? And then another thing I want us to talk about is youth relevance, right? So one of the criteria of selecting you guys was that you are young people. Why? Because, and we are going to see that in the slides to come, is that youth have not been adequately involved and included in shaping the data governance framework in Africa. And even as I asked you guys, who knows what the data what the AUDPF is? The hands reduced. Everyone knows what AU is. Everyone knows what African Union is. You know, we had elections the other day. We had a new AUC chair from Djibouti, which is great. But then what is the AUDPF? And what the heck is this data governance? And why youth? And here's why this conversation is very important to you and me as African youth. This is because, as I said, remember, we are the most youthful population in this universe. That is one. And two, that means that anything for businesses to run, for systems to run, for a government to run, for companies to run, whether it is in agriculture or in healthcare, whether it is in medicine or in engineering, or even in the creative space as artists or musicians, data plays a very critical role. And most of these data subjects, so again, another buzzword, data subjects is you and me. Basically, just think of you as the owner of the data. So anyone who owns the data, that's the data subject. So my email address, if someone says my email address, so I am the data subject. Or if someone says my phone number, I am the data subject. So think about it, education, right? There's been a case that was decided, for example, in Kenya, by the Data Protection Authority, which is the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner under the Ministry of ICT. And in that case, a certain woman sued a school, whose name I will not mention, at the ODPC, the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, because the school used the child's photos for marketing purposes to encourage people to, register and join the school without consent or without them being paid, right? Because you all know people make money being models for brands like these big banners that are for billboards, etc. It's a whole industry, and influencers make money from it. And it's not just about the money thing, but as a parent, she was not comfortable having the kid's photo plastered everywhere on the streets, and she won that case. So think about it, data in education, right? And when you're talking about education, and you think about children below the age of 18, those are minors, they're vulnerable groups, right? So data relating to such things like where they studied and etc. is very critical, because when a kid goes missing, right? Or when they get kidnapped, we want to know where were they last. Then when you come to employment, remember I told you about, again, let me tie that with healthcare. Employers hold very sensitive employment information about you. And sometimes that data may be used against you or not against you. And even if not used against you, this data should be used only for purposes of processing your employment engagement with that employer. It shouldn't be used for anything beyond that or to bias you, etc. Right? So again, there has been cases, I don't know which Data Protection Authority of which country, but an employee sued a company, which was a bank, because they long left that organization, but they still used to use his photos again. I don't know if that's a good problem or a bad problem. You're good looking, and they think, if we put this photo on a billboard, this is gonna sell, right? But then you did not consent to that data being used. And finally, healthcare. Healthcare is something that is very, very sensitive. I believe if you have a condition that is very personal to you, you do not want to share that with third parties, etc. Then let's talk about the key pillars of data governance. How many are these? This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there are 8 pillars. There's data ownership, right? So just give me 1 minute. Give me 1 minute. So when you're talking about data ownership, we are saying who has the right to control or decide how the data is being used. Is it you, the data subject? Is it, let's say, the bank where you registered as a bank with your bank account? Is it you as an individual? Is it the government, right? Think about it. Our governments are the biggest data controllers and data processors. Again, that's another buzzword. So who's the data controller and who's the data processor? Essentially, this is someone who collects data. So if it's a data processor, their only role is collecting personal data. And then data controller, this is someone who has control as to how the data is going to be stored, managed, encrypted, etc. Right? So think about it as the government. They have your driving license number, they have your marriage certificate number, they have your ID number, they have all these things, your tax ID, etc. Right? So when we talk about data ownership as a pillar, we're asking ourselves, who is controlling this data? And maybe let me ask you that question. Who controls data? Is it the owner? Is it the government? Is it institutions? Is it private sector? Is it Meta? You know? And then the next pillar is data quality and integrity. So what this means is basically ensuring that data is accurate, it's consistent, it's up to date, it's trustworthy. Let me move much faster. And then there's privacy and protection. Remember, we already talked about this. Just safeguarding personal information from third parties, from surveillance, from misuse, from unauthorized access. And then we have transparency and accountability. When someone collects your data, how transparent are they as to how your data is being used, right? And this is a problem that most private sector companies face. They lie to you that your data is not going to be used for third parties. Before you know it, you're being spammed. You're being spammed every 2 minutes with promotional emails. There's consent and control. You need to be able to consent if your data is going to be used for more things than what you signed up for. Then we have interoperability and standards, making sure that systems talk to each other. Now, this is the tech bit of it, right? So if there's this network operating center somewhere on the cloud, is it communicating with this other operating center? And then inclusivity and equity. How do we ensure that all groups in their diversity are included and represented in data systems? Finally, security and risk management. This is also tied to protection, just coming up with systems that ensure that data is protected from breaches, cyber attacks, and technical failures. So I see that there's a handful. So I don't know if maybe there's any questions before I move on. I don't want to turn this into a lecture. So what you just need to do is to raise your hand, and once I give you the mic, you accept to be a contributor. So are there any reactions? Are there any reactions in the room? All right. So maybe we can then move on. And apologies for any weird noises you could be hearing. I think our local leader just decided today's the day to start making roads and stuff like that. So the Africa Union Data Policy Framework, this is at a glance. Again, this is something that could take a whole 2 weeks course. So I don't really want to even go much into details. So what you're seeing right now here is we're going to talk about what mandate does it have? Yeah, is it binding as a document? What happens if member countries do not sign up to it or do not comply by it? What is the policy need? What is the context and what is the framework, right? So AU at a glance. So again, it's a continental policy that focuses on whatever is happening in Africa matters, how data is being used, collected, managed, etc. It came into force in the year 2022, so it's a very recent framework. And the main goal is to ensure that African countries' national data systems in the critical sectors that we've mentioned, healthcare, education, finance, and governance, are managed in such a way that is effective and efficient and encourages innovation and economic competitiveness. Every time we talk about regulation in the digital space, you'll hear, especially the techies in the room, they always say that, oh, you guys want to come with your laws so that you can stifle innovation. But this document, this framework, the AUDPS, right? So we are going to start using a lot of these buzzwords, is saying that, no, we're not coming here to stifle your growth and innovation. All we are saying is that we want to make sure, right, that in the managing of your data systems as a country, it will enhance, number one, efficiency, number two, in innovation, and number three, economic competitiveness. right? So the scope and the objectives. So there's something called the African Union's Digital Transformation Strategy. It's just a strategy, right? The way you have a cybersecurity strategy. So this AUDPF is part of this strategy, right? And the goal of this strategy is to enhance, to enhance service delivery, to reduce inequality, to improve life opportunities, etc. Right? So now think about it from a socio-economic or humanitarian perspective. We are saying that, okay, as you're doing all this, data is not missing from this conversation. And then the context, right? So we're going to look at about the international, regional trends, international policies, legislative policies, African policies, and the situational analysis of the data economy in Kenya. We're also going to talk about the opportunities and mitigating risks in Africa's data economy. What are the needs? What are the gaps in this AUDPF? The guiding principles, etc. So next slide. Right. So this framework, the AUDPF, does not exist in a vacuum. It does not exist alone, right? So it builds on other instruments like the one we've mentioned there, digital transformation strategy, right? And there are also other frameworks, as you can see on the screen. There is the interoperability framework of digital ID. There is regional model laws on data protection and cybersecurity. For example, in Kenya, there is the Data Protection Act. And I think there are certain countries in Africa that are yet to have a data protection independent law that is separate from, let's say, the constitution, right? And then there's the digital transformation strategy, the DTS 2020-2030 that I mentioned. There's the policy and regulatory initiative for digital Africa, commonly known as PRIDA. Don't worry, I'll share all this with you in the course of these 3 days. There's a single electricity market in Africa. Remember, when you're talking about technology, electricity is one of the infrastructure. There's the Smart Africa vision to transform Africa to a single digital market by 2030. And also, it's not here, but let me also mention the African Continental Free Trade Area is there. And then there's the AU Convention on Cybersecurity and Personal Data, commonly known as the Malabo Convention. There's the Program for Infrastructure Development in Africa, PIDA. There's the African Charter on Human and People Rights. I think that one most of us know. There's the Protocol on Free Movement of Persons. There's the Single African Air Transport Market. And finally, the Personal Data Protection Guidelines. So these are the frameworks under which the AUDPF builds under. And what are the governance priorities for effective data policy, right? So very quickly, to strengthen Africa's position in global governance and support the domestication. So this is a continental document. And now we are saying, how do we domesticate it into what I would say ideally is in the national ministries of ICT and digital economy, right? So this is what this framework seeks to do. Secondly, how do we ensure that we align our policies? How do we identify stakeholders? How do we advance mechanisms? Another thing is, how do we ensure clear policies to facilitate compliance and support cross-border coordination? Remember, when you're talking about technology and data flows, right? It's not like a house which is here in Nairobi and cannot be transported or teleported to, let's say, Zambia, right? With data, it flows. You take someone here right now, they're in Malaysia and they're seeing your data. So how do we handle that? As data is flowing across borders, across jurisdiction, how are we dealing with that? How do we define data? How do we categorize data, right? Remember, we said there's some which is more sensitive data than others. And then the domestication aspect, which I've mentioned. And what are the policy support that the countries, the national countries need to ensure that we have stronger data protection policies that speak into each other. So let me just go through this very quickly, finish in 5 minutes so that we can get into our breakout rooms and have more fun, and also open the floor for maybe, we can speak to each other for around 5 minutes or 10 minutes, then go into our breakout rooms and then come back. So Now that you have a brief understanding of what the African Union Data Policy Framework is, what it's seeking to do, just ensure that our data policies in different countries speak into each other. As this data is flowing from East Africa to Southern Africa to Northern Africa, how do we ensure that we have the right system? So what happens if we have very robust cyber data protection systems, let's say in Morocco, and we do not have the same in, let's say, Zimbabwe, right? So should this data not flow into Zimbabwe? And there are certain ones that you should start thinking about, like data sovereignty, and maybe you should also just start asking yourself certain questions, right? Where you see that, for example, again, sorry, I'll use a lot of examples in Kenya, like a lot of our elections data, as we saw from our last elections, is that our database is somewhere in Europe and we are here in Kenya, right? So when we say, no, we want to see how did people vote for our president, right? What happens? They need to ask someone in France to open the server. And we should be asking ourselves as Africa, and we're talking about sovereignty, and then sovereignty when it matters to data. Should we be having our data stored in foreign land, right? And that's also a question that I'm going to throw to you guys. What do you think? So now let's talk about youth data and governance, youth and data governance. What are the challenges? And then what are the opportunities? Then we go to our breakout rooms, right? Okay, so do we start with the good news or the bad news? Maybe let's start with the bad news, no problem. The challenges. So these are 4 challenges. So what are the challenges that are facing youth in shaping data governance frameworks, both nationally, regionally, and continentally as Africa? The first one is exclusion from national policy dialogue. As you can see there, there's like an image written by invitation only, right? Yeah. So there's this thing called public participation, or let me say, quote unquote, public participation, right? And you all know that, we have the same problems. That's one thing I've come to learn as Africans. There's nothing so different about what's happening in Uganda with what is happening in Nigeria. It's just the font changes a little bit, but it's the same thing, right? So when we talk about public participation, our leaders already have the set list of people they always invite. It's always the same people, and they're not there to question. They're not there to challenge what the government is shaping, right? There are people who are there to be given food, buffet. They sit in high-end 5-star hotels to say, yes, rubber stamp. We agree with what you say less, They don't want people who want to create trouble. They don't want people who are going to say, what did you just say again? Where did you say our data is going, with digital ID and all of that? So that's the challenge, Many young people are excluded from these tables. They are excluded from these tables. In Kenya, we call it Baraza. In South Africa, I think it's called Indaba, if I'm not wrong. Tables where this data protection acts, data protection laws are shaped. Youth often lack a seat at the table. And maybe allow me to add to that, okay, let's just proceed. The next one is weak or fragmented data laws. So many countries have outdated or uncoordinated laws that do not reflect today's digital realities. Let me not even talk about outdated. We still have countries that do not have a data protection act, a separate data protection act, an independent data protection authority. So even before we start even talking about the fragmentation of these laws, there is no law. So let's just start there. There is no law. So maybe there's just an article in the Constitution which says every person has a right to privacy. 1 minute, let me admit someone. Every person has a right to privacy. Beyond that, there is nothing. Yet you will come to realize that data is a whole ecosystem. It's a whole ecosystem, and I hope that most of you will even find career paths in this sector, whether as a data analyst, a data protection officer, a data engineer, and all that, So admit all, okay. So weak fragmented laws. So one, there are no laws. Two, if they are outdated. So for example, the Data Protection Act in Kenya came into force in 2019. That was pre-COVID-19. We all know that there has been a massive technological transformation post-2020, right? AI has just come and it's just blowing our minds, right? We are still understanding what is generative AI. We realize, oh, there's Grok. The next minute there's this, there's perplexity, there's, you know, all these things that are coming up. And it's not just machine learning LLMs type of AI. There are so many that even I still am trying to catch up with. So as technology is advancing, we need to also advance our data laws. We need to keep up with the system. So I know according to many legal jurisprudence framework, it says that, you know, statutes should be reviewed every 5 years. But when we're talking about technology, don't you think 5 years is too long? Maybe we need to start talking about reviewing these laws every year, right? So there's that challenge, because we're talking about data. What happens with, you know, data that has been generated by AI? You know, what happens if someone that has violated your data is a chatbot? Now, who do you sue in that regard? There's also a challenge of lack of awareness. Most young people are unaware of how data policies impact their rights, identity, and digital life. I remember there was a certain interview I did I watched on television, on national TV, and there's a young person who said something that I remember to this date. He said that young people need to stop saying that they want to be elected as leaders, they want to be given spaces in tables just because you are youth. There is nothing special about you being a young person. Our parents, our fathers, our mothers, our uncles, they were once young. Everyone was once young, and now they are not young. Now it's your chance to be young, and soon you'll be 40, God willing, and soon you'll be 60. So what? Right? So there's need for us as young people to say that, let us be the difference. Let us be in the table and be knowledgeable about these things. Let's not just go there as a tick box solution that, okay, we have a few older people, we have some 2 young people, and then we call it an intergenerational dialogue, and that's it. No. And that's why you need such kind of workshops to equip you enough to be able to say, if you want to be in a youth or in a task force that comes up with the data protection policy or law of your country, you have knowledge, you're an expert. You're not a token hire or a token appointment, right? So many young people don't know what this is. What is data? What is a data subject? What is data fragmentation? What is encryption? You know, who is a data controller? All of that. Finally, another challenge is a lot of risks. As you can see there is an image saying 24 hours video surveillance. Poor data governance exposes youth to surveillance, data misuse, misinformation, and digital exclusion. Especially in the light of digital activism, you all know what happened with the finance bill protest last year in Kenya. A lot of what happened on social media, online, and yet you find that you're a young person, you're online, and then you're sharing something on X. The next minute, someone comes to your house and you're abducted. How did they know where you're staying? Data, right? Did you know that, for example, like if you pay for water bill through the what we call meter, right? The government has the metadata of that specific house number, street where you stay. And so the government, again, as a data controller, is able to track you down to your house, to your toilet, and come for you. And so as young activists, are we safe to even have conversations and plan online for a peaceful protest if some mobile network operator, let's say MTN, is intercepting my communication and sharing the same with the intelligence service of my country? How safe I am to be able to go to the streets and speak about things that matter to me? So again, there are things such as surveillance, data misuse, misinformation. But all is not lost. Hope is not lost. There are opportunities, and that is why you're in this room. And I really hope that if there is no data protection law in your country, I hope that those who are in this call can be able to take that up, join that task force, shape that law. If there's an existing law, I hope that you get to share public comments and memorandums to shape these laws. I hope you're able to, so let's just go into it. The first one is public consultations. Remember, we said that many youth are left out from these tables. Why not create a table? Why not create a table if the one that is created, they do not want you on that table? If they're creating a wooden table, you create a marble table and say, you know what, I'm creating my own table and I'm bringing lots of seeds. So young voices, again, think about it from not just from the traditional public consultations that happen in a room, but even on X spaces, right? You can create virtual tables where you bring young people together to share discussions around privacy, national data, lawmaking processes, etc. Another one is data literacy campaigns, right? With this knowledge, you're able to go back to your community, right? You've had this Twi language, there's Shona, there's Kiswahili. These people need to have this information disseminated to them in a language they understand, in a format they can bite in that information. So this is again upon you to go back to your community, to your schools, right? And lead awareness efforts, teach people what is data protection. How can you protect your rights as a data subject? Another one is open data projects. If there's anyone here, I saw some of the applications, some of you are techies, right? Why don't you come up with open source codes, right? Contribute to tools that promote transparency and civic engagement. You know, why not come up with an app or a tool or a chatbot that can help, you know, create awareness or can even translate this AUDPF to your local languages, right? Or a chatbot that you can ask it, what is AUDPF? And it tells you and you chat with it, etc. 1 minute. Yeah, so for the techies in the room, this is upon you. This is a business idea. I'm just giving you free business ideas. You can literally come up with a tool that the government can buy, that the African Union can purchase and say, okay, we want to disseminate this AUDPF to the local communities, to the informal settlements, etc. Finally, regional advocacy. I always say that your voice is bigger than your country. Your voice is bigger than your community, your village, right? So if you're in Nigeria, for example, you can advocate for this in the ECOWAS region, right? If you're in Zambia, you can advocate for this in the SADC region. So either join or initiate youth networks that push for the implementation of AUDPF across Africa. Don't wait for someone to give you the chance, right? Try and research online. If there's no network, why not start one? Why not start one and encourage people to join and say, we as South African youth, we are saying that we want to encourage and lobby, right, and hold campaigns that encourage our national governments to domesticate and to, what's it called, to ratify. Well, this is not really a document that requires ratification, but like to domesticate this AUDPF into the existing national data protection laws. I've said so much, and at this juncture, before we go into our breakout rooms, I want us to have some conversations. So if you'd like to ask any questions, if you'd like to comment, kindly raise your hand, and once I grant you the mic, please accept to be a contributor. So let's have some reactions in the room, 10 minutes, there are about some hands. Let's have some people raising their hands. I can't see any hands. I hope I'm not talking to myself. Hello? Some emoji reactions if you can hear me. Okay, oh, thank you. I was okay, great. So let's see some raised hands, right? So that we can just have a few reactions in the room. What you feel about what I've just said. I know I've said a lot. Okay, we have Okon, so we can start with Okon. And then next we have Haji Juma. So please accept to be a contributor. You're going to see something pop up on your screen. So accept to be a contributor so you can turn on your microphone. Okon, if you can hear me, the floor is yours. Can someone hear me? Okay. All right. I can also see Frederick Odhiambo. So and Andre George. So please accept to be a contributor. Andre, go for it. Hello, yes, we can hear you.
Yes. There's something you said there that really shows like how vulnerable our data is out there. You talked about those abductions. I live in Kenya also, and I'm a victim of that. Like, it's something very scary that our data is just out there. It's just easy. And then most of the time it's taken without even you knowing.
Yeah.
Like, there's a time I decided to do a search and I found my data on certain websites that I've never been in. So it's like companies sell your data and that kind of stuff. It's really scary. That's one thing that I wanted to say that I caught up from what you said there.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And yeah, indeed, that is true. The moment you start realizing how vulnerable our data is, you start being careful even with how you share your information when you're getting into a hotel or a building, or who you share your phone number with. For example, just off the record, personally, I have 2 phone numbers. So there's a personal phone number and then there's a business phone number, right? Because your phone number right now, you need your phone number and email to register right about anything, from your bank account to, you know, to let's say if you're purchasing a car, to just about anything. So I just need your email to know everything about you, how many bank accounts you have, where have you been. Like, I can literally track you down to your very last interaction. So indeed, it's something that we need to start thinking about a lot as young people, and just see, how do we safeguard our data, how do we protect our data, and how do we speak against data breaches. That's very important. Yeah, maybe one more hand. Frederick. Okay. Is there anyone who's raised their hand? Evans, Makori. I can see Caroline. Caroline. Is there anyone? Please just accept to be a contributor. Maybe we can have one more person speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Who's that?
This is Evans.
Yes, please go for it.
Thank you so much. I'm Evans Makori from Kenya. You had mentioned that, I don't know if that's role is from Kenya. You had mentioned that some of these data protection acts are always reviewed after 5 years. Coming to know that, I think it's absurd with the rise and changes of technology. I think that one should be reviewed on that. Now, even if me as Kenyans, as we know, even if laws are reviewed annually, let's say hypothetically, let's say that we're opting that they get to be reviewed annually. How can you ensure implementation and enforcement to keep up with pace with these review processes? You're getting me?
Could you please come again, the last bit?
I'm saying, how can we ensure implementation? Because yes, we can opt to review the laws annually, but then the main issue is that how can you ensure that the implementation, the feedbacks that we get, how can we ensure that they get to be implemented and enforced to keep pace with the review processes? Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And indeed, that's very true. You can imagine having review of a law that is greatly and deeply tied to technology every 5 years. That should be the first point of policy recommendations that should say, as young people, that no, we want this to be reviewed every year. That's 1. 2, every challenge when it comes to laws and policies is always implementation and enforcement. We have the best laws, we have the best policies out there, but then it always boils down to how are we enforcing this? How are we implementing this? So one thing I can say about that is, one, maybe awareness is what we need to enhance more, right? Because when people know, because like the many data protection acts, right, clearly stipulates the rights of a data subject, and it stipulates also the penalties that come with violating these rights of data subjects, right? And it's usually very heavy fines, and at some times it's usually even imprisonment, like 6 months to 2 years imprisonment. So if more people knew about the repercussions of violating one's privacy, data privacy, or misusing this data or whatever offense it's there, then it will be easy to lodge more complaints with these data protection authorities to say that, and so that's what operationalizing a law involves. It's first of all being knowing what the law is. And so maybe the first step is that. And then about the review processes, I would say, and again, as I said, public participation is usually largely a tick box exercise or a formality. So you find that you sit, you do, they have like validation workshops, they have more than 20 public participation meetings wherever across the country, and there are big budgets for this public participation. But they already have a piece of paper of what the final law will look like, and that's what's gonna happen. And so all this is just, it's just video, it's just they're just doing it so that they are seen as they are working with the people, for the people. I have a friend of mine who works in government, and she told me in confidence that governments think they know. One, and two, when they engage with the public, they always engage from a point of defense. They're always expecting that whatever they are doing, you're gonna fight them. So already they're coming to you saying, you can say whatever you want to say, but they've done this to their ears. So you're just making noise. So yeah, thank you. And let's go to the breakout rooms. I think for the next call for tomorrow and Wednesday, I'll change the settings so that once you want to speak, you can just literally unmute and speak. So apologies for that oversight. So right now, I want us to go to our breakout rooms. I think I did create the breakout rooms. 1 minute. Breakout rooms. Okay. So, so there are 4 rooms that are there. I gave them very interesting names. So one is called Uhuru, which means freedom in Kenya. Another one is Indaba, which I think is a South African name. Another one is called yeah. So, and then there's Sankofa. So I'm gonna open the rooms. I don't know if you can see them. There are 4 rooms, so feel free to enter any. And basically what you're going to do is answer this question. What are the biggest data governance issues affecting youth in your country? I think 30 minutes should be good to go. Let me see what else we have left in the breakout rooms. So whatever you're going to discuss is going to shape the youth call to action. So one of the main outcomes, I'm going to change this from 30 minutes to 20 minutes, right? Okay, so please let me know if you're, yeah. So please let me know if you can see the rooms first of all. Maybe just raise thumbs up if you can see the breakout rooms. Some thumbs up. Adiva cannot see the breakout room. Okay. Is there anyone else who can see the breakout room? No. Oh, oops. No. All right. All right. So sorry about that. Okay, so if the breakout rooms are not working, I think we're going to have the conversation just here in the room so that everyone can participate in it. So this is just an open floor conversation. What are the biggest data governance issues affecting youth in your country? So feel free to raise your hand and we can have that conversation. There is no wrong or right answers. Remember that you being here is you speaking on behalf of the hundreds of thousands and millions of youth in your country. We are not from that country. We may not be understanding what's happening in that country. So please feel free to, to share those challenges and I'll do my best. I really wanted us to put it into a Google document, but not a problem. I think I'll work on that for tomorrow's and the other sessions training. So I see some hands. So let's see, maybe we can have Caroline Nyawira. I don't know if you're still there. I see Frederick. I see Favor. Maybe we can have Favor speak.
I am here.
Yes, please go for it.
All right, my name is Caroline. I call the way from Kenya. Part of the data. Okay, I can't remember the question very well, but I know the answer
It's on
to
the
it.
screen.
Oh, okay. So, for instance, in my country, there has been a lot of breach of data. And I'll give the examples you had earlier on mentioned, where you find yourself buying a SIM card line from major telecommunication companies, and then the next day you're getting these weird messages. That is really weird. And I'm also going to give an example of the gentleman who unfortunately was abducted. That was an unfair for the government because they're the control of the data. So instead of them to use it in all the right ways, they choose to breach. And to us as normal citizens, that is, breach of data security as the subject.
Thank you so much for sharing. Let's have the next. If you're able to speak, maybe just speak, because I'm not able to see everyone. So anyone who's able to speak, and if you can't, please raise your hand and I'll let you participate. So we have Salim, I can see Dennis, Julius. So once I give you the mic, please accept so that you can see the microphone. Okay, who's next? Just feel free to unmute.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hello, and please introduce yourself when you start and your country. Yes, please.
Okay, this is Evans Makori once again from Kenya, and well, what are the biggest data government issues affecting the youth in my country, Kenya? I think one of the issue is literacy, and specifically since you're talking about data, it's low data literacy. I think those, if there are any Kenyans here, we know that we find like, I think in the light of the finance bill that happened, we get to know that there's a lot that we weren't exposed to. So most of us, we were not actually literate about some of the things. So many youths don't fully understand their digital rights. That is why you find people just get abducted, and it's a normal thing, not knowing it's their breach of their right now. So many youths don't understand the digital rights. They don't understand how their data is being collected. Most importantly, they don't understand how the data is being stored and used. Like we have in our country, we have our biggest telecommunication company, Safaricom. Safaricom was accused of sharing our data to the government, and that led to some people being abducted. No. So I think if we data literacy is something that it's affecting, it's a big issue that is affecting us. And if we get to learn about issues like consent, you're talking about the terms in tech, you're talking about encryption, we're being told that our data is end-to-end encryption, but is it really? So we need to get familiarized with that terms. We need to engage heavily online so that youths in our country get to get familiarized themselves in terms of protecting their own data as far as the technology is concerned. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for sharing. Let's have more hands. And if you're able to speak, please just do so. As I'm seeing the hands, there is a document I've shared on the chat. Let me just share it on WhatsApp as well. So you're going to interact with it on comment function. All right. So to add your responses. So sorry for those. I'm just seeing the people who are waiting to be admitted. So feel free to also add your comments on the document. I've added it on the chat and also on the WhatsApp group. So I can see a number of hands. So if you just need to accept to be a contributor so that you can be able to speak. Someone wants to join the call, admit on. Okay, so is there anyone who has accepted to be a contributor? Please, you can unmute and just share.
Okay, hello, can you hear me?
Hello, yes.
Okay, so this is Atta Senior once again, speaking
Yes.
from Accra. So I'd like to share one or few things concerning the challenges that we have with data protection in Ghana. And for me, one of the things that I see as very critical is the lack of digital literacy and awareness. I realize that most young Ghanaians or most of us don't understand what personal identify information is, and then how it is being used and how it's being protected. So we normally we normally use this information out easily, and then this makes us vulnerable to phishing attacks, online scams, and then all kinds of uniform consent where we agree to terms and terms that we don't usually understand. Yes. And one other thing I'd like to touch on is the exposure of data and how sometimes our data is being manipulated. Sometimes you'll be there during elections, and then you see people texting you, people reaching out to you, and you are shocked how they all got your details. You hear honorable so and so would like to inform you about their political agendas and then all that. So you realize that most of our data are just being exposed. Media-wise, digital-wise, and that there is not much enforcement of data compliance. Yeah, so that is something that's all that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. Let's have more interactions. We have around 10 more minutes. So this is really just for you guys to share, because this is going to form the youth call to action. Favor. Yes, Favor, I've been seeing you raising your hand. What you need to do is you need to accept my invitation to be a contributor. So Favor, maybe go for it. Just unmute. Also, guys, as you can see, I've added, there's a document I'm sharing on my screen. Feel free to add your comments there. Favor, if you can hear me. We
Yes,
have
I can
Dennis.
hear you.
Favor, are you speaking? Yes, please go for it.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Favor
Hello.
from Nigeria. And Nigeria faces a lot of data governance issues, and the study shows that the Nigerian youth are very active on social media, but their awareness is limited to privacy risks, how their data is being collected, used, and how to protect themselves online. And also, the Nigerian Data Protection Act, is still evolving, but there are limited mechanisms for seeking redress in case of data breaches or misuse. So even if the Protection Act is still trying to grow, we still do not have enough mechanism to refer back to whenever there's data misuse or there's a particular data protection issue. And we also lack fully independent and well-resourced regulatory authority that enforces and supervises the use and control and protection of data online. And we have a privacy paradox where the youth expresses concerns about privacy but still engage in high levels of self-disclosure online. And that is caused by, obviously, lack of awareness on what to do and their rights. And there's lack of control over data and privacy settings on online platforms. Thank you.
Sorry. Wow, that's a very good point. There's a last point you said of lack of control on?
Lack of control over data and privacy settings on online platforms.
Oh, yeah, privacy and data settings. Yeah, on online platforms. That's a really good one, And by the way, there's this thing called privacy by design. I am so passionate about data. I am so passionate about data, and maybe we can keep having these conversations in our WhatsApp community of practice, because when you let's say you're downloading an app, right, and you need to give them the permissions. The longest notice is always the privacy notice, nothing else. You scroll and scroll and scroll to the very last, and there's no option to reject. It just says accept. And there's something that I'm gonna share with you guys on WhatsApp, where TikTok recently asked me if it can view my external offline gallery and do like photo collages of my images. Can you imagine how intrusive that is? And right now, some of these permissions that we even give to apps, it can listen to what you're saying. Have you ever found yourself, you're talking to someone over the phone, and then you go to TikTok, and exactly what you are saying over a phone call is on your FYP, and then you're like, oh, TikTok gets me. No, it doesn't get you. You gave it access to your microphone. So I think I'll find it and share it with you. I saw it, I was so shocked. Like, what do you mean? And the part of rejecting was very small. So literally I would have just said yes, and TikTok would have been able to access my gallery, my private photos, and even do photo collages on it. So that's a very big issue. And thank you guys to all of you who are adding comments. Just make sure you don't delete anything. Just add, please don't delete anything. So let's see if we have more hands. I see there's Dennis Tembo, there's Nasa Hajijuma. So anyone who wants to speak, just raise your hand and talk. And then also, if I've not captured anything, feel free to also add it in the document. The document, I've shared the link on the chat and also on our WhatsApp group. So any hands? Any hands? This is literally, because the outcome of this youth call to action. So every day before we finish our trainings, we are going to do sort of quote unquote drafting this youth call to action. So today we're just talking about what are the challenges that youth are facing. And then tomorrow we are going to be talking about what are the policy recommendations that we want governments, stroke the African Union, to take up, to be able to ensure that youth are more included in shaping better governance. And the last day is just to sum it up and all that. So this youth call to action, of course, I'm going to edit it and everything and put it in a better document. It will have all your names as long as you contributed. So I also want to do a link. So every day you will be signing attendance, right? So that those who have been actively participating, your names will be in the youth call to action, and we seek to share the youth call to action with the African Union. So think about this as if you've not engaged in policy making at a continental level, think about it as your first shot in, you know, it's all right. So let me insert the table so that you can add your names for attendance as well. So full name, email address. Maybe we don't need this, or maybe full name. So any reactions? We need more people to be contributing. Are there any hands that have been raised? And some of us are very quiet. You feel free to ask a question. Feel free to, you know, to comment so that we can communicate more. But I think going forward tomorrow, I'll change the settings so anyone can just, and feel free to also use the chat function. You just need to raise your hand. Adiva Digital, please, you have the right to speak. Please unmute.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you? Where?
Hello.
Hi.
Are you saying something?
How are you?
Okay, I think that's Adiva, please just mute. Let's have some more hands. Bridget, you can I think you can speak, Bridget. Bridget, can you maybe raise your hand again? All right. Because Dennis, Evans, the ladies are so quiet today.
Hello, Valarie, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for today's session. It has been really insightful. Maybe to add on the challenges that we are facing, I think, okay, you'll apologize. I will definitely apologize. I've not yet introduced myself. My name is Dennis Kirimi. I'm from Kenya. I'm a data analyst, and I was looking forward to this session on data governance. And one of the challenges that we're facing, considering being from Kenya, I think as a victim, it's data transparency. That is one of the key things that has not been addressed, considering, okay, it's maybe channels down under illiteracy. As a youth, I believe most of us are into our careers, and most of the times you find yourself pushing a lot of applications. And while doing so, a lot of data is being collected, and majority of people are not even able to tell how the data is being used. And just to highlight on the data transparency, I believe if someone is quite informed about its privacy, we are able to request or else to be able to know how the data will be used. But most of the sites you'll find themselves, they are not clear on how they're going to use the data, or rather the context. And I think recently I'm quite active on X, and I came across an algorithm where people are just making fun on how they are being asked to even record videos while applying for a job, and people trying to bypass that. So I think data minimization is quite key, whereby it's always important for whoever is collecting the data to collect should always process the minimal amount of data, considering the use it's going to maybe act on. So as the youths, it's really nice for us to always be sensitive whenever you're being asked for the data, to know the context on how it's going to be used, and maybe whoever is collecting the data to give clear information, or else the metadata on how they're going to use the data that they're collecting. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing. I see Bridget has added. So yeah, please feel free to add on the document, but let's do it in an organized way. Don't delete anyone's idea. And these are going to be added. So as we're even still talking, maybe we can wrap this up in the next 10 minutes. Let's keep let's keep sharing our ideas in the documents, because remember, this youth call to action is going to be co-created with you guys, right? So just think about that youth in their diversity. So by their diversity, I mean there are persons with disability, there are youth who have critical health conditions, so that means their health data is very sensitive. Think about young women, think about youth in rural communities, in informal settlement. Think about, so in all those diversities, right? What are the data governance issues that these youth are facing, right? Because now whatever we highlight today is going to guide now our conversation tomorrow of, okay, so these are the solutions and this is what you are saying. So again, think about it from your country, and then think about it from a perspective of like where the AUDPF can come to fix those issues. So I'm going to share this document attendance list. Those who have participated are the only ones who will get a certificate after this training. So I encourage you to attend all the sessions. I really loved the energy in the WhatsApp room. So let's keep up there. Let's keep connecting. Let's keep collaborating. Let's follow each other on LinkedIn. As the people have shared, follow each other on LinkedIn. All right. So I think, let me say, anyone with the link can comment so that it's not so messy. So I'm sharing this on the on the chat box. So please make sure that you fill in your attendance. Otherwise, your name is not going to be in the youth call to action, and you're not going to get a certificate. For you to get a certificate, you need to have attended all the 3 sessions. So if you can see the document, yeah, I can see some raised hands. Let's see, we have, it's just the same people, or is it an old hand? Okay. I think I'm just gonna make everyone a contributor at this point. So let's have some more conversations in the room. I'm just making you guys contributors. Leila, Moses, Provia, any reactions, any challenges you have seen, any questions, any suggestions on anything we've talked about today? So I'm just making everyone a contributor. So please accept so that you can be able to speak. Yeah. So let's see some new hands. I've sent invitations to everyone to be a contributor. So let's see some new hands, some microphones being unmuted. Any questions on anything that was presented? Right? Yeah. Maybe we can have like 5 more reactions. We want to make this as fun as possible. And also, you guys are very good DJs. I've been the whole night and the whole day, I've been working, listening to our youth data and decibels playlist. So you guys have great music tests. But then there are people who have put music that are not from African authors. It has to strictly be African musicians, African artists. So let's have some more conversations for 5 more minutes, and we wrap this up. So we'll not even get to top of the hour. Let's have 5 more. Yeah, thank you. I can see people are also adding. Let me see if people are adding responses, are filling in the attendance list. Let's see. Attendance list. Done. Okay, let's keep adding our attendance, guys. Don't delete anything, just add your attendance. Make sure you've added your attendance. All right. And let's keep the energy up, or even better tomorrow. So before we close, okay, Kihara, Stephen, the floor is yours, and also Emily Dibuseng. So any of you, just feel free to unmute. And if you cannot speak, just raise your hand. Emily, Kihara, Stephen. All right. So sorry about that setting. I'll do better tomorrow. Apologies for that. So let's go over the program lineup for tomorrow. Share this tab. Stephen, yes, please, Stephen. Okay, let's see. You know, like I scroll today too. Dibuseng, it says you're a contributor. Stephen, you wanna go for it? Okay. So tomorrow, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry about that. I'm gonna change that setting tomorrow. But you know what? If you had something you wanted to say, feel free to send it as a voice chat on the WhatsApp group, and we're going to add it to the document, or we can still keep having this conversation in the WhatsApp group, but I'm going to change the settings so that anyone can speak tomorrow. So quickly run through tomorrow, same time, same place. We're going to talk about regional versus national data governance policy gaps. Where is the disconnect, right? What's the difference between, so where do these laws intercept, or where do they disconnect, right? So we're talking about the national data governance policies and laws, and then there's the regional ones. So like, for example, the East African community is in the process of finalizing, I think they completed the validation last year on the EAC data governance framework. And then there's this AU data policy framework. So now the question is, how do we ensure that these laws are not fragmented? So there's the national ones, there's the regional ones, and then there's the continental ones. So we're going to have that conversation. And then if you've never done anything on policy advocacy, don't worry. Tomorrow you're gonna learn about everything about policy advocacy, and how you as a young person can influence data policies in your country, in your region, and globally. And not just in Africa, but even like globally, right? And then we have messaging and framing. So how do you turn your lived experiences into persuasive policy asks? So I always say policy advocacy is almost like an art. It's about using the art of storytelling. It's about touching the heart, touching the emotions of people, of decision makers, to be able to pick up what you're saying and turn it from just a recommendation to a real policy. So how can we as young people also work on our language? Just think about it as, you know, when a guy is interested in a lady, and even vice versa, right? And you want this person to like you, you want them to date you. There's a way you do it. You can't just say, hi, I like you, I want you, and we are getting married tomorrow, right? Would you even say yes if it were you? Would you, like, there's a way, it's an art, you know, there's a language that you're supposed to use. There's politics around it as well. Who do you need in your circle to be able to ensure that your policy does not die before it even sees the light of day? And then we're going to have breakout rooms. Tomorrow I'll make sure that the breakout rooms work. And we're going to get into those rooms and start drafting the initial segments of the youth call to action. So at this juncture now, we are saying, these are the challenges we discussed yesterday. And based on this is what we want the AU to do. And this is what we want our national governments to do. And then informal networking. So that is all on my end. Again, big sorries for not being able to engage better. I'll change that. And in case you have not said what you wanted to say, please let's use the voice chat on the WhatsApp. Let's continue this conversation there. Follow each other on LinkedIn, and see you tomorrow same place, same time. Bye-bye.